Yeah, so Centel and Love, can't forget Love too. We were on the Discord, and if you're not part of Discord, go in the description, join the Discord. And they tricked me. They know I don't watch horror movies, so they tricked me into watching Get Out. So we did a whole reaction. That's in the description too. But here's what I picked up on. I picked up on the red flags, microaggressions. And I'm here to tell you about microaggressions. See what
sink into the floor.
Ooh, I can't believe this shit.
You were one of my favorites.
You was never my favorite. Funky scallywag yamp with your ironing board flat ass. Ooh. I'm gonna get my cousin over here and she gonna beat your ass. Your funky bitch. Hello, governor. This is Rakai Steed, Noob from the Ville, and I'm gonna give you a super sweet, super short recap of the film Get Out. Now, any of you who watch my channel know that I don't do horror, and for some people, this may not be considered horror. For me, it is 100% a horror film, and it may handle social commentary, and it may be a thriller, suspenseful, and I can't speak for all African Americans, I'm not trying to. However, for me, this is most definitely a horror film, and I watched it once. I'm glad I watched it. Hats off to Jordan Peele. I will never watch this shit again. Not never. In the movie, we have Chris, who's played wonderfully by Daniel Kaluuya, and he has a girlfriend, Rose, played by Allison Williams. They have reached the point where they're at that meet the parents kind of stage of their dating. So she invites him to a weekend getaway upstate with her parents, Missy and Dean. Now, Chris is apprehensive the entire time because he's like, this is an interracial couple. And he's like, do your parents know that I'm black? And to most people, that wouldn't seem like a thing, but that is absolutely a thing. When a child of one race brings home someone of another race to meet the parents. And I understand what just came in your head. Look at what year it is. This ain't way back. However, people are people, and they still have preconceived notions about people, and they still have these weird microaggressions. Chris tells his best friend, Rod, who just happens to be a TSA agent at the airport, what's going on. And Rod says, man, you don't want to do that. It's not going to be a good look for you. But Chris is like, no, I love her. I'm just going to go meet the parents for the weekend. It's going to be a nice little getaway. On this getaway, they start having problems before they even get there. They run into a deer on the highway. When Chris gets out to check on the deer to see if the deer is okay, immediately a police officer pulls up behind them. Allison gets kind of sharp. She gets smart in the mouth with the police officer and tells Chris he doesn't have to give him his ID or none of that, and they go on about their business. That's the first red flag. They get to the house and the parents are super accommodating, but it comes off as just nervous attempts to deal with their daughter's interracial relationship. Allison said this is the first black guy that she's ever brought home, and she's not nervous. She doesn't seem nervous whatsoever. She seems almost flippant. Parents keep making weird comments. Like the father says to Chris, he'd have voted for Obama a third term if he could have. Best president in his lifetime, hands down. It's just a weird comment. And it's one of those things that people don't pick up on. You have to say something about black people or to prove how much you approve of or like black people only when you're speaking to black people. He wouldn't have said that to one of his other friends. They have a couple of servants at the place. And the lady, she's the maid. I think her name is Gina. She's real weird. It gives off a very Stepford Wives vibe. And she's dressed and kind of acts like this is the 50s. The house handyman or what have you, and I forget what his name off the top of my head. He's really, really strange. And Chris keeps having, not only with these two servants, who, by the way, are black, he keeps having really strange interactions with all the family. When he meets the son just keeps talking about his genetic makeup and what he could do if he pushed his body, because, you know, black people have this inherent blah, blah, blah. Okay. Chris is outside catching a breath of air. And I think his name was Porter, was the black manservant. And he's running at full speed towards Chris. And Chris is like, what the hell? And then he veers off and goes another direction. And then the next day, Chris goes in the house. They're having this party, this soiree, this shindig. And Chris finds his phone's been unplugged, and he thinks it's Gina, I think her name was, the maid. And she said she has such a horrible time. She was in the room cleaning, and she's not used to these cellular devices. And she unplugged his phone by accident, didn't know how to plug it back up. Girl, stop. What you mean? You know, you unplug it, you plug it back in. The hell? But just the way she's speaking is so old-timey. And then Porter apologizes and says that he was sorry for his, his rigorous workout, and he hoped he didn't frighten him. So this day the party happens, and there's a huge number of other Caucasian friends of the family that come over, and it's weird because they're all in these black vehicles. It's almost like a funeral. They come over and a number of weird things happen. Everyone's kind of catering to Chris, and they make these weird comments to him. And he sees another black guy there, another young black guy, and he looks familiar to him, like he's seen him somewhere before. And the guy is probably one of the most whitewashed fellows ever. And his responses to Chris's questioning, just conversation with him, are really puzzling. Chris takes a picture of him, and the flash on his phone, on his camera, triggers something in the young black guy, played by Lakeith Stanfield, by the way, where his nose starts bleeding and he attacks him. He later apologizes. So a number of weird things are happening. I think I skipped it, but on the first night that they were there, what Missy, the mother, does, she does some kind of hypnotherapy. And Chris has this thing with smoking. It calms him. He's got some past trauma from his mother in a car accident. And she hypnotizes him pretty much without his permission, but she hypnotizes him seemingly to help cessate, seemingly for the cessation of smoking, to stop his smoking habit. As the weekend progresses, things get weirder and weirder. Chris finds a box in Rose's room that has these pictures of all these black people that she'd been with at that house. Like the background is around that house. So blatant lie that he wasn't the first black person that she's brought home. But then he finds pictures of Rose with Porter and with Gina as whoever they were, but they're different. At the party in a weird bingo game that looked very much like a slave auction, essentially, Chris is auctioned off. He is sold off to a blind art dealer who we later find out this family has a history of kidnapping black people to use their bodies in sort of a weird invasion of the body snatchers kind of thing, and implanting their mind somehow into the black people. So they essentially take over the black people's body, and the black people are still conscious and aware, but they are a backseat driver, unable to stop or do anything. And that's why when Chris took the picture of Lakeith Stanfield's character, the one who was in the passenger seat, he kind of took back over for a second and was like, get me the hell out of here. They capture Chris using the teacup that Missy was using earlier as the trigger. They prepare him for surgery, but Chris is able to get himself out of the situation, and he tears through the family, and he's on his way to get away, but Rose pulls a gun on him. She's getting ready to be bad, but Rod shows up. And in the ending scene, they're on their way back to the city where they come from, and Rod said, I told you. And even though you can see that Chris has been through a traumatic weekend, Rod never gave up hope. He knows his boy, and he knew he was in trouble, and he came to get him. You know, I love my quotes. And in reading comments on our reaction to this, and also some of the very similar comments came up when we were doing reactions to Star Wars The Acolyte. Someone said that microaggressions are just a chicken shit way for black people to assuage blame on someone else when there's nothing actually there. Bet. Okay. Michael J. Knowles wrote a book called Speechless: Controlling Words, Controlling Minds. And he says people who worry about microaggressions usually have never faced macroaggressions. Yeah, I call bullshit. Usually the quotes I give you are something that I wholeheartedly agree with, but not this time. Microaggressions are the everyday verbal, nonverbal, and environmental slights, snubs, insults, whether they're intentional or unintentional, that communicate a hostile, derogatory, or negative messages or negative message to target persons based solely upon their marginalized group membership. Now, when we say microaggressions, usually those mean the nonverbal ones. But the verbal ones are also the things that people say, and whether it's intentional or unintentional, you don't realize that you had an aggression. An aggression is really, here's another quote that I absolutely love. So, Gabby Rivera in Juliet Takes a Breath said, I understood microaggressions to mean little bullshit acts of racism. Now, it's not all about race. Microaggressions can mean more than just about race. You know, something that ends in an ism. And that can be, again, marginalized group membership. So that could be, members of the LGBTQ community, people of different races. So that would be racism, ageism, sexism. But I'm saying this based on my own personal experiences with micro and macroaggressions, just so we're clear. So I don't know anything about the LGBTQ community and what they're going through. But wrong is wrong. To say things like, oh, she does this like a man. Wrong. I have personally heard, oh, you are just a credit to your people. You're one of the good ones. Wrong. You're so well spoken. As a sorry, did you expect I don't know the English language? I don't talk American? Wrong. I've heard, especially this is people of the disabled community. I've heard people say, oh, you're so brave. What? For doing what? For living their life? Wrong. I've heard this on primarily my father's side of the family. My father's side of the family, they are some beautiful people. And while I would love to say that I got some of that sauce on me, not really. They are, just some beautiful people. They look like the DeBarges. They do. My aunt, she's pushing 80. Absolutely gorgeous. She looks like Lena Horne. And that's no bullshit. But even though I have, very nice looking people on both sides of my family, one of those microaggressions I've heard often about my father's side of the family is like, oh, you're so exotic. What are you? What do you mix with? What is your racial makeup, your ethnic background? You just don't say that to people. Ever since I've had locks, I've had people, oh, can I touch your hair? And to touch a person's hair, their hijab, their turban, to touch their wheelchair, to touch their skin. Oh my God, just look at the color of you. You're so wrong. Wrong. I can go on and on with different microaggressions. And the thing is, you have probably heard them and didn't think anything about it, because that's kind of what we do. It's so ingrained in our culture that we let them go in one ear and out the other, and we write it off as they didn't mean anything by it. And a lot of times that really means they don't know any better. But sometimes they do. I remember when I was in school, I had teachers who didn't believe that I was as intelligent as I am. And when I said that I wanted to do certain things or take up certain subjects, they would tell me, oh, maybe that's not for you. Maybe you need to try something else. And I remember as a young man always being pushed into something that was more physical. When I said I was going to go a pre-college curriculum, and counselors, people who worked for the school system, trying to push me into vocational, even though my test scores reflected near, and I'm saying near, Mensa levels. I'm smarter than most of the people in the school, including adults, but you think I should go work in electrical work? Okay. I can go on and on with this, and I'm not. I'm going to wrap this up with this. If you identify microaggressions, it can help us overcome everyday prejudice. Whether you're talking about race, whether you're talking about age, whether you're talking about sex, whether you're talking about, gender, whether you're talking about sexual orientation, whether you're talking about the disabled community, sometimes you have to be a little bit more cognizant of what actually spills out of your mouth. And if something does come out that's wrong, you have to remember, people can be offended. And sometimes it's not that you said it and you're like, well, I didn't mean it like that, so it wasn't offensive. If someone else takes offense to it, it's offensive. Now, I understand I'm an old school dude and I've said things just because that's the way I was brought up. And when someone calls you out, when they point that out, you have to take account for what you have said or what you have done. It's part of being human. It's part of maturing. If someone hits you with a microaggression, don't get defensive, stay calm, because sometimes they truly don't know any damn better. You should view it as an opportunity to understand, grow beyond your unconscious biases. We all have them. Yes, that includes African Americans too. We have them as well. Acknowledge people's feelings and apologize for your comments. What did you say? What did you do that was offensive? Understand why the other person might have found it offensive. If it's appropriate, thank them for educating you. You don't know what you don't know. But now that you know, you have to do better. If you knew better, you do better. Take responsibility and avoid further microaggressions. That's really all that you can do. You have to take accountability for what you said, what you did, and if you're dealing with someone, try to stay calm and educate them the best that you can. It may go left, and you might see that their microaggression is just a mask for real aggression. And that's unfortunate, because I guarantee you, we all need to figure out a way to get along. Things in this world are not becoming any easier. And we're going to find out really quickly, it's not about race. That's a cover-up. It's about class. And those with money are greedy, and they're continuing to collect as much money as possible. And they don't care about the poor, and they definitely don't care about the middle class. And if you're not one of them, or even if you think you're one of them, you may not be. We have to take care of each other if we're going to survive. I would love for you to like, comment, share this video as much as possible. And it may be a little bit controversial, and I get it. It is what it is. It's what I saw in this movie. Those microaggressions are definitely red flags. And red flags can mean a whole lot of different things, but those were the red flags that I saw in this movie. Thank you, Jordan Peele, for this movie. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe. I'm on the quest to get to now 2,000 subscribers, and I can't do it without you. I need the viewing hours, so please watch as many of my videos as much as possible. You might find some gems in there. And please, at the very end of this, there's a link. Go check out one of the other videos. I have a bunch of other great movies that I've reviewed and some other great TV shows, TV series. Remember, it's all about this and really all about this.